let's do another 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. Here on this channel, we do a Packers 7-round mock draft every single week. This will be version 6.0. Last week in version 5.0, we started to implement trades as we are getting closer and closer to the actual draft. We're actually just 1 month away as of today. So we have about a month left of mock drafts. Things are starting to hone in, right? We're starting to see which prospects are rising or falling, and still a lot can change over the next month. But that's also why I like to implement trades within the last month to start to get an idea of what value could the Packers get back, say if they traded down, say if they traded up. Last week we did trade down in that mock draft. If you want to go watch that one, you didn't watch it yet, you can click the link right above. Like I said, we do a mock draft on this channel every single week. So if that does interest you, among a lot of other draft content, I'd highly suggest going down and clicking the subscribe button and turning on post notifications so you don't miss any of the videos. Also, a reminder to go check out BetUsTV for more sports content with March Madness underway. If you're looking for more sports content, BetUsTV is the spot to find it. I'm going to link their YouTube down in the description below. Go over there, click subscribe. Also, they have an account on X. It's at BetUsTV. Big shout out to the channel sponsor, BetUsTV. All right, so now into the 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. Now, there is one thing that has changed since last mock draft, and that's the Packers signed Mecole Hardman at wide receiver. Now, as I stated in my reaction video to the Packers signing Hardman, I still don't see this changing their draft strategy at all. I don't think the Packers sign Hardman and go, okay, now we're better at wide receiver. We don't need to draft as many. I still think the Packers are going to leave this draft class with 2 wide receivers. That's what my heart says. I think they're going to go a receiver earlier, maybe 2nd to 3rd round, and then also one in the 5th to the 6th round. And I released a whole video last week. I dove down into 40 wide receiver prospects and went over which ones fit the Packers' typical draft thresholds. It took a long time to go through, so I'd really suggest going and watching that. It kind of gives you like a certified list of receivers the Packers likely have on the draft board and why. So I'd highly suggest going to watch that. My point here being is I think the Packers are going to still draft 2 wide receivers in this draft class, even after signing Mecole Hardman. I think he translates into a special teamer at punt return, at kick return, which is awesome. It's not often you have a guy that does both and was once a second-team All-Pro at returning at that, but also a potential gadget guy. We'll see what happens. He might not even make the 53-man roster, and I think the Packers need to add competition at receiver anyway. So again, that's the only thing that changed from last mock draft. I believe they signed him like that same day, but later in the day. So of course the mock was before the signing, but outside of that, the needs are the same for the Green Bay Packers. They still have needs in terms of the front 4, interior defensive linemen, of course, edge. Some would say we still have a need at cornerback, which I think the Packers are going to add at least one in this draft class. We already talked about wide receiver, and maybe they add a tackle as well. Again, for this mock, trades are available, and I'm using the Rich Hill trade value chart, which ties a value to each pick. I'm using that rather than the PFF trade engine because it's really not realistic at all. So when I'm doing trades, it's with that chart in mind. All right, so let's dive into it. Let's enter the draft, and we're either going to get to a spot where I potentially need to trade up for a player I have listed, or to the Packers pick at 23. All right, so none of the players that I potentially wanted to trade up for hit the spot where I was going to go, okay, I'm going to trade up for this player. So quickly to go over some of the picks, Cam Ward at 1, Shadur Sanders at 2, Membo at 3, Carter at 4 to the Patriots, Genty at 5 to the Jags, Jade Barron at 6 to the Raiders, Tet McMillan at 7 to the Jets. I see him falling way farther than this. He's a guy I have listed down. If he hits around like 18 to 19, that's a potential trade up. Gutekunst was the only GM at his private workout. Now there's other scouts there for other teams, of course. It wasn't like he was the only guy there, but he was the only NFL GM there. So clearly Gutekunst keeping a close eye on Tet McMillan. And I think if he does fall to like 18, 19, maybe the Packers finally break the streak and go receiver in the 1st round. Another player, Will Johnson at 15. I was waiting for him to fall to right around that 17, 18, 19. If that happens, he's falling for some reason, and there's really no reason behind it. I think he's going to be a phenomenal cornerback at the NFL level, and he should be a top 15 pick for sure. So that could potentially be an option there. We've Golden at 18, Michael Williams at 19. I'm making the same video that I did for wide receivers, but for edge this week, and he is a definite Packers threshold fit in terms of what they like at edge. So he's an option for the Packers. Egbuka at 20, Emin Wari at 21, and Hampton at 22. I really like how this board fell at 23 because there's plenty of options here. Now, the Packers obviously don't have a need at safety, but a team that needs a safety could trade up here to 23. Luther Burden I really like. I just don't see the Packers going Luther Burden in the first round. If they're going receiver in the first round, it's going to be someone like Ted McMillan if possible. James Pierce is completely outside of their thresholds for an edge rusher, so I feel like he's off the Packers board. I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, if James Pierce is there at 23, run the card up. The Packers aren't the team to stop a fall trend. Like if a player's falling due to talent or locker room concerns, the Packers are not going to be the team to end that. Now, Donovan Ezaraku is someone I really, really like. And obviously played under Jeff Hafley. So much production last year, 14 total sacks. 26 quarterback hurries, 18.2 pass rush win rate. But when you look at Ezaraku's frame, 6'2", 247. That is smaller than the Packers like in terms of height, in terms of weight. They usually like 6'4", 250 plus. So greater than 6'4", greater than 250. He's 2 inches shorter than what they like, but he also has 34-inch arms, which is usually that threshold mark for the Green Bay Packers. They love their edge players to have 34 or greater inch arms, which there's not many of them in this draft class. So Ezaraku, I'm really thinking about here, but I also really, really like Kenneth Grant, because the Packers have a big need at a zero tech nose tackle type of defensive lineman. And I think Kenneth Grant is the best one at that in this class. 6'3", nearly 340 pounds. We see this past season, 3 sacks. The season before that, 5 sacks. He had 23 quarterback hurries, great run defense, 87.5, pass rush win rate at 9.4%, run stop rate, 7.9%. So right now at 23, I think I'm definitely between these two, Donovan Ezaraku and Kenneth Grant. I think the value right here is best with Kenneth Grant, if I'm being honest. Again, I really like Ezaraku, and if Kenneth Grant wasn't on the board, he'd 100% be my pick here. But I think in terms of day one value, what's going to help the Green Bay Packers day one, which is what a lot of Packers fans want. Hey, let's get draft picks in that can help the Packers day one rather than, the projects like Lucas Van Ness, who is in year 3 in a make or break year, right? And I'm not saying Ezaraku is a project by any means, coming off an insane production last year. But I think Kenneth Grant day one plugs right into that role that is left by TJ Slayton. That's a lot of snaps, right? And I think Kenneth Grant plugs right in, helps against the run, which the Packers were good at last year, but maybe because of TJ Slayton. And I think there's a massive, massive hole right there, more so than there is at, edge. I think the Packers have a hole at edge, but they also have a ton of depth guys there, one of them which could step up like a Brenton Cox Jr., where right now we really don't have a defensive lineman for that zero tech role. Kenny Clark can play it, and maybe that's their projection there, but I think even adding Kenneth Grant with Kenny Clark, you can move those guys around too. I really, really like the thought of that. So I'm going to go Kenneth Grant here at pick 23, defensive lineman out of Michigan. And then Ezaraku goes right after to the Vikings. So that would be something you'd watch for the next years to come, how both of those players pan out. That's why I hate sometimes being right next to an NFC North rival in a draft, because it's like all eyes are on that pick, especially when you pick one before them and you see what the Vikings get. You're definitely going to be watching that for years to come. All right, so I had to stop it at pick 40 with the New Orleans Saints. There's a player that if they hit 40, I think it's an easy trade up and selection for the Green Bay Packers. So I'm willing to give up the draft capital for this player. After getting Kenneth Grant with your first pick, if you have the capability to trade up early into the second round, kind of similar to what they did with Christian Watson, and go get a wide receiver, I think this is a great opportunity to do so. New Orleans Saints, so we're trading 54, swapping it with 40, so we're swapping second rounders. We're giving them our third. Packers have done a decent job at third round picks recently, compared to the history of the third round pick, where it seemed like every time we picked someone in the third round, it was a bust. But we're also swapping a fourth rounder, so we're moving up 12 spots there. And then we're picking up a 7th rounder from the Saints. So really, we're moving up in the 4th round, moving up in the 2nd round, but we are losing our 3rd round pick. So there's going to be a big gap, right? There's going to be this player and then all the way to the early 4th. So there's a big gap there, and not much draft capital to potentially trade up yet again, but I think it's worth it. So we're going to go ahead and offer that trade to the New Orleans Saints, and the player we are trading for is Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State. I think the Packers definitely have their eyes on Jaden Higgins. He's one of 7 receivers out of my entire Packers threshold receiver video that I feel like the Packers will end up with someone like Jaden Higgins, coming off an 1,100, nearly 1,200 yard season, 9 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards the year before that. He's had, 700 plus yards the last 3 seasons. Great contested catch rate, 58.3%. Receiving grade 90.5. Grade versus man coverage 87.8. You look at him as an athlete, he fits the bill for the Packers. 9.92 RAS, 6'4", 214. Ran a 4.47 40 at that size is crazy with elite explosion, 39-inch vertical, 10'8" broad jump. I think he's a lot of people's favorite wide receiver for the Packers to target because he fits so well into that X role that the Packers need. A guy on the outside that can beat man coverage, can win contested catches. I really like Jaden Higgins. I think he moves super well for a receiver his size, his snap down, his route running. And at the Senior Bowl, he exploded, which the Packers obviously love players at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's definitely a great fit for the Packers. So we trade up, go to get our guy, trade up 14 picks there to go get Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State here at pick 40. So we're back on the board at 112. It was a long time to wait. We skipped, the back half of the second, the entirety of the third, right? And I think I'm still going to trade down. Now, it's only 8 picks. The reasoning behind this is I kind of want to double up here in the 4th round. And with Tennessee, this is almost exact value, swapping 112 and 120. And then swapping 159 and 141. So they're moving up 8 picks, or we're moving down 8 picks. But then we're also moving up an additional 18 picks there in the 4th round. I think that value there is very, very good. There's a couple players right around that, the market 120, and then also, 159 that I really like. And after trading up and missing out in the 3rd round, really nailing the 2 4th rounders, I think would be huge. Or excuse me, 141 is actually an early 5th, but you get the gist. It's a lot earlier than 159. So the board did fall the way I wanted it to. Now, someone I did have my eyes on at this spot was Femi Oladejo. Does somewhat fit the Packers' thresholds at edge. We've yet to go edge, but we did get Kenneth Grant, so we're still loading up on the defensive line, and he'll help with that. We're at 120. I think a position that we need is cornerback, and someone that I keep tying to the Green Bay Packers, and I think would just be, such a Packers 4th round pick is Noel Williams out of California. He's kind of the last guy on this list, outside of maybe Denzel Burke, that I think is really worth it in these, 4th to 5th rounds for the Green Bay Packers. Zay Alexander is intriguing. Of course, the injury concerns there. Some of the other guys, more so slot cornerbacks, where Noel Williams is an outside guy, had tremendous ball production last year with 7 interceptions, only allowed a pass rating of 40.1. He fits the Packers' thresholds at over 6 foot, over 195 pounds. That's generally what they draft at cornerback, an outside guy. We already added Nate Hobbs, who has inside-outside versatility, adding a pure outside guy that can compete against, say, Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon. I still think Jair's traded before the draft. If you want me to actually include a Jair trade in one of these mock drafts, maybe the next one, so we can get like extra draft capital that way, let me know in the comments below if you want me to do that. I know it's, kind of just a, assumption at this point, but if you want me to do it in a mock draft, let me know. And I can do that next week. But at pick 120, we're going Noel Williams, cornerback from Cal, here in the 4th round. So we're back on the clock at 141 after that trade down, but of course we moved up into the 5th round. And the reason I wanted to do that, I wanted to really nail these 2 picks, get a cornerback that can compete, but also get an edge rusher that can compete. And the board fell pretty well in terms of who I think are edge rushing fits for the Green Bay Packers. Again, I'll release that video later this week. Someone that is a massive fit for the Green Bay Packers, in my opinion, is Tyler Barron out of Miami. We see this last season coming off a 10-sack season, so the production is there. 6 sacks the year before that. 3-year starter the last 3 years in college football. 18.7 pass rush win rate. Also a good run stop rate at 9.0. He's a tremendous athlete, 9.32 RAS. He's 6'4", almost 6'5". So again, the Packers like 6'5" and up for their edge rushers. He's just about there, right? It's fine. He's 258, so he's above that 250 mark for the Packers. Now, he does have slightly shorter arms. The Packers like 34 inches and above, but he's 33.1. It's not like he has 32-inch arms here. And another thing they really like is great explosion, which he has, 35.5. Now, he didn't test agility. They also take a look at shuttle for their edge rushers, but Tyler Barron, I think, fits the bill for the Packers at edge rusher for a 4th to 5th round guy. Tyler Batty's also a guy that, does potentially fit the bill, but again, not as much production. So here in this 5th round, I feel like you take the guy that had the production. He gets right into into that room in a rotation of Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr., JJ Enagbare, and I really like the thought of that. Tyler Barron, I like this pick here in the 5th round. So at 141, we are going Tyler Barron, edge out of Miami here in the 5th round. I stopped it here at pick 185 in the 6th round. We're set to pick at 198, so 13 picks away. It's very cheap to trade up in this scenario, and there's a player I do want to trade up for here. The Pittsburgh Steelers only have 2 picks remaining, where we have 4, so maybe they want to pick up another 7th rounder here because they didn't have many picks to begin with. So I'm trying to, actually, they own this pick from Chicago. So you swap 198 and 185, and you also send our final pick, 250, to the Steelers. You offer that trade. It is accepted. And there's a couple players that I did trade up for that I do like, one of which is Jonah Monheim from USC. The Packers seemingly plan to put Elton Jenkins at center, but Monheim could be more of that future option at center. John Williams out of Tennessee is an interesting one here if the Packers wanted to add a tackle. I like Danny Stutzman at linebacker. They re-signed Isaiah McDuffie, but they let go Eric Wilson, but they probably see an upswing in production and playtime for Tyron Hopper. But a player I keep talking about over on Twitter as like the most Packers fit at wide receiver in terms of what they like is Dante Thornton Jr. I also really like Shamir DK here. These are 2 receivers that I have in the final 7 wide receivers in this entire class that I feel like are definitely going to be Packers. Now, one thing about Thornton is you kind of worry about the production, but if you go and watch, even at Oregon, but mainly at Tennessee this past season, there's times where he's just not on the field. And I don't know why. There's no like character issues that have been reported. I don't know why he's simply not on the field, but there's times there's receivers on the field that are way worse than him for whatever reason on that Tennessee offense, because he only had 187 pass snaps this past season, but 662 yards to show for it with 25.5 yards per reception and 6 touchdowns. I mean, you take a look at his RAS and you can see why the Packers would like this guy. 9.84. He's 6'4.5", 205, 4.30 40. Good 20-yard split. Good 10-yard split. Arm length, 32 inches. Not great at vertical, 33 inches. Still pretty good. It's not great, but it's still pretty good. Adding Jaden Higgins and Dante Thornton, I think would be just, that's my perfect 2 wide receiver ads in this entire draft class, in my opinion. You get a guy with a ton of production in Higgins. He's going to slot right into a potential starter year 1, but you also have the upside, the athleticism, the potential of Dante Thornton, a guy that could really, turn into a terrific, and I mean terrific, deep threat at the NFL level. I really like Dante Thornton Jr. He can also run block. Him and Shamir DK are both guys that can stretch the field and can run block. So both of these, I think the Packers have their eyes on. I think they'd have Thornton slightly above, but DK is also very, very nice here. 783 yards this past season, played in a lot more snaps. So if you look at DK at 783 yards, and they had inconsistency at quarterback for almost 400 pass snaps. Thornton had almost 700 yards at 187 pass snaps. That just shows you how much yardage he got with so little snaps. And that's why I like the potential there. So at 185 after trade up, just getting rid of our last 7th round pick to do so, we're going Dante Thornton Jr., receiver out of Tennessee. We have 2 final picks in the 7th round, and I'm going to go tackle here at 237 in Trey Wedig, a former Wisconsin Badger, transferred to Indiana this past season, had a really solid season at Indiana at right tackle this last season, allowed 2 sacks, run block grade 85.1, solid pass block grade of 74.2. We can see over the last 3 seasons, he's also kicked in at guard, sometimes for the Badgers offense, left guard, right guard. That's mainly what he played in 2023. In 2022, he played some right tackle for the Badgers, even played some center. He played all positions but left tackle the past 2 seasons. Guy born in Wisconsin, versatile lineman, feels like a Packers 7th round pick, right? So we're going Trey Wedig here at pick 237. We're actually going to double dip into linemen here in the 7th round. I went Trey Wedig at our first 7th round pick. Second one here, 248, our final pick. Let's get an interior guy. Let's get a center in Drew Kendall. Obviously played under Coach Jeff Hafley. So, anytime I see a Boston College player, I kind of look at him a little bit further because, hey, he could be definitely on the Packers board if Jeff Hafley gives a seal of approval. I know it's on the opposite side of the ball, but he was head coach there, so he obviously had some interaction with him. And he's played a lot of center in his college career. And again, Elton Jenkins probably the move this year to center, but what about further down the line, and you could kind of grow someone like Drew Kendall to be your potential future starter at center. 6'4", 300 pounds, allowed 1 sack this last season. Good pass block grade, good run block grade. Just makes sense, and you're taking a flyer here in the 7th round. So we're going to Drew Kendall, center from Boston College, with our final pick. All right, so let's go over this Green Bay Packers 7-round mock draft version 6.0. We start in the 1st round. Kenneth Grant fell right into our laps at 23. Now, Donovan Ezeraku was also on the board, but I think Kenneth Grant, like I said, when I made the pick, gives us more day one. I think Ezeraku is a terrific player, will become a terrific player. But I think right now the Packers have a massive hole in that interior defensive line left from TJ Slayton, and Kenneth Grant would fill that need right away, and I think be a massive upgrade to TJ Slayton as well. Then we traded up in the 2nd round, similar to what the Packers did to get Christian Watson. We swapped 2nd rounds with the Saints, moved up 14 picks. We swapped 4th rounds, moving up 12 picks there, but then had to send over a 3rd round pick. So we lost out in the 3rd round on this mock draft, but he also picked up an extra 7th there, and we went up and got our guy, Jaden Higgins. I think a lot of people like Jaden Higgins. They keep tying him to the Green Bay Packers. I think this is good value at 40, and if the Packers get someone like Kenneth Grant and then trade up and get Jaden Higgins, I'm fine with them not having a 3rd round pick. I think this is a home run day 1, day 2. Kenneth Grant, Jaden Higgins. Then in the 4th round, going Noah Williams, another corner I love and I think is phenomenal value in the 4th round. We actually traded down this so we could kind of move up in the 5th round as well, from 159 to 141. Moved down 8 picks, still got our guy with Noah Williams. Tons of ball production last year, 7 interceptions, add more depth to the outside cornerback position. Then at 141, go Tyler Barron, who fits the bill for the Packers' threshold needs at edge. Slightly shorter arms than they like, but nearly about at the height. Good athleticism, good weight, and a good amount of production at Miami this last season. Then we trade up in the 6th round to go get the most Packers-esque player in this entire draft in terms of thresholds, and that's Dante Thornton Jr., receiver out of Tennessee. Very, very intriguing, and I would love to get Higgins and Thornton in one class. Then in the final round, in the 7th, we just go 2 offensive linemen. We go Trey Wedig, former Wisconsin Badger, played pretty much every position but left tackle. Just get him into the building. We need more tackle depth anyways. And then Drew Kendall, played under Coach Jeff Hafley. We need more interior depth in terms of center, because right now we really don't have a true center on the roster. So why not get one there in a flyer pick in the 7th round with Drew Kendall? I really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Let me know what you think of this mock draft down below. Moved around in this mock a lot. Something that the Packers could do during the draft. We know Brian Gutekunst is not hesitant to trade and move around in this draft. So we could see something similar to this, where maybe the Packers sit still in the 1st round, but then, day 2, night 2 starts up and it's like, boom, we're right back up in there and get receiver or something of that sort. That could definitely happen. It's happened before. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Reminder to go check out BetUsTV. They're linked down in the description below. Go check out their YouTube for more sports content. Really appreciate you guys coming by. If you could leave a like down below as well, it supports the channel a ton, but I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.